What is the impact of the withdrawal of one of the streaming giants in Africa having on the film industry as a whole? And in Asia, Netflix has seen an uptick in their viewership by 20% in the Asia Pacific region. What could be the contributory factors and the lessons therein for our industry in Africa? This and more is what we'll be taking a look at in today's episode of the Film Mandate. I am Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Film Mandate. I am Papa Otu, and today's very episode, we'll be talking about the withdrawal of one of the streaming giants in Africa, particularly or the specific streaming giant we are talking about here is Amazon, and this I am taken from an article that was published in September 7th of last year, and I felt that the stories therein is this the story is very necessary to discuss, particularly relating it to what is happening in Asia in the second story. So I'd like you to go on a journey with me, and then let's read about it and see its impact on the film industry as a whole. This article was published in the Hollywood Reporter by George Zala. Pardon me, by George. Yeah. So I read, Africa and TIFF focus as producers discuss impact of Amazon's original content withdrawal M&A. We need to find more sustainable ways, said one of the producers on a Toronto weekend panel. So, how Amazon's pullback from investing in African original content and M&A have affected entertainment industry players on the continent was one of the topics of a panel at the industry conference section of the Toronto International Film Festival on Saturday. The panelists of the session, entitled Pathways to Africa, were Ethiopian-Canadian filmmaker and Gober's Media founder Tamara Dawit, Grandma Knows Best, Finding Sally Alaza, Made in Ethiopia. So these are films that she has made. And Chioma Onyewe, Eight Bars and Clef Ego, a Lagos-based producer, director, writer, and founder of Rencontre Productions, whose I Do Not Come to You by Chance, an adaptation of Adawa B. Tricia Inwabani's novel, premiered at TIFF 2023. Her latest feature, The Legend of the Vagabond Queen of Lagos, is premiering at this year's TIFF. The event was moderated by Carmen Thompson, a film programmer, curator, and cultural producer based in Scotland. Onyewe has felt the impact of Amazon's refocusing in Africa. It was difficult. The state of things have changed quite a lot with Amazon pulling out, especially because it's also affecting the other streamers and their valuation of projects. She said, personally, I had a couple of things in conversation around developments, so that kind of killed my business plan for the year. She offered that we need to find more sustainable ways, other that the involvement of streamers is one way, but it's not the only way. Onyewe is looking for her own way. In the past year, I've been trying to build more co-production strategies with Europe. She explained before joking, I'm really hitting up white Western money. Dawit's experience is different. In East Africa, what's happening with streamers hasn't really affected us because in Africa, they've primarily focused on countries with English content, she explained. So, yes, maybe we have been affected a bit in Kenya, but a lot of the work I've been doing in the last 5 years has been Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania, because those countries have a lot of great screen content creators but haven't had any capacity building support. So we never had those opportunities because we are not producing Anglophone content. A strategic focus has been on working with each other in the region. If I can get a little bit of money in Ethiopia and someone can get a little bit in Tanzania and someone else in Kenya and Rwanda, then we can come together and be a little bit more powerful. Have more of the basements of the household built before we go to Europe and try to work with the Europeans, she explained. So we are really trying to figure out how we can own more and control more of our stories as a way to protect them and work. Then, with a little bit more power, we go to the table to co-produce. Meanwhile, Adeyemo knows about the challenges described by Onyenwe, given that she deals with a lot of Anglophone African content. In terms of the African content that I'm dealing with, it was a huge blow in that it did affect the valuations. It created less competition in terms of where we could go, therefore allowed streamers to really be able to have a little bit more comfort in terms of dictating terms. Unfortunately, she explained, as African creators, we are not just stuck with the options of Netflix, now MultiChoice, and Canal. That used to be two providers and now it's just one. And whatever regional support you might have, this was a reference to Canal Plus. This was a reference to Canal Plus to acquire African pay TV giant MultiChoice. Instead, Adenyemo said she is really kind of starting to work with other African producers and creators and look for new collaborative models. Independent producers are the unsung heroes of emerging film industries around the world, the panel description had promised. In this session, African producers bridging the continents with international markets offer their insights on best practices, considerations, opportunities, and challenges worth preparing for. The TIFF conversation came just days after an African industry executive was bullish about the outlook for African content. There's a good chance that African's film industry is about to have its own global moment. Nomsa Feliso, CEO of General Entertainment at African pay TV giant MultiChoice Group, the owner of African streamer Showmax, said in her own opening speech at MIP Africa on Monday, we've already seen that happened with Afrobeats, Amapiano, and African music as a whole. Yeah, so this is an article that was published months ago, last year, September, with regards to a panel discussion that happened in TIFF, that is Toronto International Film Festival, as producers spoke about the impact of Amazon's original content withdrawal in Africa, and yeah, so there is a challenge in Africa as a whole, and mainly because of the dependency of African filmmakers or creators on streaming services, or even just the dependency of African film content on the external markets outside Africa as a whole, which I perfectly understand because we do not have the internal mechanisms or structured markets to help our filmmakers on the continent. So the dependency of African filmmakers, particularly on external markets, is really high when you are looking at breaking through the clutter of what is happening internationally to perpetuate the regular production where you get in enough funding for your own productions. And that is actually the case. In this article, I like the various aspects discussed in there. First and foremost, Africa as a continent is actually fractured in the sense that we have two main languages. I mean, we have several languages, that is to say, but in terms of international languages that are really known to be spoken in Africa, we have the English speaking countries and that of, I mean, also the French. And this in itself, it's a barrier to an extent. However, one may also say that film is a universal language. If it's well done, most people won't even be bothered about the language being spoken because, yes, at the end of the day, there'll be subtitles added to films that makes it easy for people to read and understand, though it may be a little bit of a distraction. But good films would provide a way of uniting even people who are divided by language. An example is Parasite. When Parasite made it big in the US, the distribution market in US, most people, I myself, watched Parasite, and so many others watched Parasite, even though the language spoken in the film itself was Korean and not English. So yes, that shouldn't even be the major problem. But yes, on a larger scale, when streamers or other distributors come into a market like ours, they may be looking at the most populous market. And in Africa, the widely spoken language, that is international widely spoken language, is English. And so Amazon came for that mass market, and not just Amazon, Netflix and others. Even though Netflix has paid attention to Nigeria, which even though they speak English, it is more of a pidgin market. So the withdrawal of Amazon, in a way, has affected the continent in terms of being able to have a presence on the world stage. From one of the panelists, she said that she had to find a way, a different collaborative means to be able to have a strong stance on the world stage. The fact that there has been a withdrawal of Amazon from Africa sort of unevens the stage for us, where you don't have enough leverage or negotiating power when you go to the table to discuss the terms with regards to your content. And that is a challenge because apart from Netflix, even Netflix, who has withdrawn its presence in Nigeria, well, not entirely, but it's sort of limited the number of films it will co-produce with the Nigerian filmmakers. It makes it difficult because then they will determine the terms. That is through no fault of theirs because in our market there isn't really streaming giants that are are competing for content. So yes, it becomes a challenge. And I like the idea of a collaborative effort among the nations in Africa. It's good to go out there for the markets they offer, but perhaps there is the need to look within as to the potential markets we have on the continent. Nigeria alone is seen to be one of the most formidable markets in Africa. But that is not enough. There is the need to look at networking the entire continent for a continental market, a continental market where we can have the opportunity to be a formidable force on the global stage. It may take the form of chains of cinemas all over Africa, or it may take the form of having perhaps a one global streaming giant from Africa by Africans ourselves. We have a little bit of that in multi choice, but even multi choice is looking at being acquired as stated in the article. Whether that would be a good thing for Africa as a whole, I may not understand or I may not know the dynamics and I may not know what exactly that would offer to Africa. But we need to look at structuring our market such a way that we can be able to have profit of our films internally, even before we look at the outside market. I think Nigeria is trying to do such by making sure that internally their films make the necessary impact before they look externally for more sales, so to speak. So, in as much as this is a blow of a sort to the African film industry as a whole, I think it presents to us an opportunity to sort of restructure ourselves, to find among ourselves as nation states to collaborate and bring something to the table that perhaps the world cannot understand and seem to offer us. So I like the fact that one of the filmmakers spoke about trying to collaborate with filmmakers within the Eastern African province or states before they could go onto the world stage to negotiate or have some form of power to negotiate. And that is what we need to look at. We need to really pay attention to the fact that of the world's population, Africa has quite a number to offer. And this has to start with collaborating with each other, regardless of whether we are an Anglophone speaking country or a Francophone speaking country. We need to bridge the gap because just as music is a universal language and we dance to the tunes of Amapiano and Afrobeat, even sometimes without us having an understanding as to the lyrics, so is film. So is film. A lot of us have been watching Indian films, Chinese films, even without understanding the exact language they are speaking. Even with some of the African films, there are people who do not understand the English and yet still enjoy the action, enjoy everything therein. And besides, technology has far advanced where now, aside just the language, the original language being spoken, there are other audio tracks that enables one to turn the original language from English or whichever other language that may be to a language you may understand. So I believe that the division with regards to language is not a barrier. It's not a challenge or a prominent challenge like it used to be. So we need to find a way of uniting ourselves as African states and build a formidable market. Whether we are looking at chains of cinemas, so be it, or whether we are looking at establishing a continental streaming giant, so be it. But we need to look at internally rather than externally. Well, I must say that as it stands now, if as African filmmakers, there's nothing much we can do because most of our funding for quality productions come from outside. And yes, we need the outside market. The good thing about establishing a formidable continental market is this: once it is thriving, you would have other continents or other thriving film industries coming internally to invest. That is how it has always been. When a market seems to work so well, you have other people wanting a share of the market, and that is what we need to do. I'm not saying we shouldn't collaborate with other continents. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But when we are able to create a very formidable market internally or formidable industry, most people would gravitate towards us naturally to work with us. And that is what we need to look out for. And I'm glad they've been having this discussion. It's unfortunate that the right policymakers and those who matter that can help bring about a structured industry are not really participating in this conversation as much as they should as much as they should. And perhaps if data can prove to the viability of our industry, maybe they may pay attention to it. Maybe they may pay attention to it. So, yeah, even though it's an old article, I thought that the lessons to be learned therein still applies to what has happened here. And talking about strong markets, Netflix, which is another streaming giant who reduced his presence or its presence in Nigeria, with others debating that they actually have left, also has seen a significant surge in their market in Asia. That is the Asia Pacific to be specific. Yeah. So, in an article published in Variety just, I think, 2 days ago, it speaks about Netflix, having an uptick in their viewership in the booming markets of Asia. And I'd like to read it. So Netflix Asia Pacific film slate drives 20% viewership upsurge or surge in booming markets. And yeah, so I read. So Netflix strategic investments in Asian Pacific filmmaking is yielding significant returns, with APAC, that is Asia Pacific members, film viewing surging nearly 20% in 2024, according to data revealed at the company's ongoing APAC film showcase in Tokyo. So I keep talking about data, it's so important. Okay, let's go on. The streaming giants disclosed the APAC, that's APAC. APAC films dominated its non-English film weekly top 10 charts more than content from any other region last year, with over 100 APAC titles breaking into these rankings. So, yeah, language has never been a barrier. Forgive me for interrupting, but I'm so excited about this article and its relevance perhaps to the African film industry. Pardon me. Now, the robust performance underscores Netflix's expanding footprint in the world's most populous region. So, So the average Netflix member watches 7 movies every month, noted Min Young Kim, VP of Content for APAC, excluding India, highlighting film's crucial role in the platform's engagement strategy. For Netflix India specifically, films represent nearly half of all viewing time among the highest film engagement rates globally. So Indian titles have maintained an unbroken presence in Netflix's global top 10 non-English list every week over the past year. Yeah. So the showcase underscored Netflix's dual focus on developing original content while licensing established regional hits. Recent successes span diverse genres and markets, including Japan's City Hunter, Korean action comedy, Officer Black Belt, Officer Black Belt period drama, Uprising Yeon Sang-ho's thriller, Revelations, Indian courtroom drama Maharaj, musical biopic Amar Singh Chamkita, Chamkila, and Indonesian's action film The Shadow Strays, which premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. So Netflix content investments have sparked broader cultural ripples throughout the region. The release of City Hunter in Japan boosted sales of the original manga by a staggering 900%, while Amar Singh Chamkila introduced the late musician's work to younger audiences, generally generating millions of views across social media platforms. The company is also investing in industry development through filmmaker training initiatives. These include partnerships with the Korean Academy of Film Arts, a fifth VFX Academy to enhance local technical talent, and the Real Life program providing hands-on experience for emerging filmmakers in Thailand and Indonesia. When we invest in local stories, it does something else. It supports local jobs and local industries. Kim told attendees at the showcase. She talked about the company's commitment to storytelling that is authentically local and creative and takes big, bold swings. So this story, indeed, it's something that perhaps we should have been looking at in Africa. You should have been looking at in Africa. So a couple of episodes ago, I spoke about the controversy, well, within the Nigerian space itself, how Netflix has reduced its investment or slate for local production or co-production to about three, as proclaimed by one of their filmmakers in there. And this was due to the fact that by Netflix's statement, they said that they weren't having the enough yield that they would have want to keep them in the markets of Nigeria, a massive presence in the markets of Nigeria as they would. And there was also a bit another article where Amazon withdrew completely. For whatever reason that may be, yes, markets is a key thing within that space. And no streaming giants will go into a market where they won't make the necessary profits because it is a business and it's perfectly understood. So that is a challenge. But the thing with Africa, aside economic reasons, where perhaps most individuals will not be able to afford the subscription rates, Africa likes content. If you go on social media, Africa contributes a lot to the number of people who view content online. A lot of Africans are online watching, not necessarily because it's free, which is one factor, but the other side of it is that we enjoy stories. Africa, Africa's continent has been a continent of stories where a lot of the history of the past are passed down through storytelling by what most people may term as by the fireside storytelling. So storytelling is a key integral part of an African, wherever they may be. However, the good thing that we've discovered in this article is the fact that Netflix seeing 20% uptake or surge in their market in the Asian Pacific, it's an encouragement for them to have even gone further to invest in upgrading the technical skills of people within that region. I think specifically Indonesia and perhaps other markets. And that is really good. That is something we need to look at. It is good because the more we see viewers' interest in a streaming content or perhaps even movies shown in the cinemas or perhaps even in a freemium platform, it then encourages those that matter within the industry space to keep on investing. As we can see, they are even looking at beyond just their presence in a region, but the fact that they are even investing in the training, in the upskills of filmmakers within a region is exciting. And then it's something that I'm sure within the Asian region they will be doing more of. The regional market from India, which is one of the most populous nations in the world, Netflix presence there would never leave because they have a lot of these the citizens or Indians watching, and that is good for business. The uptick of or the surge of viewership is all that the streaming giants will be looking for because their revenue stream comes from subscription, and by subscription, a lot of subscription will lead towards viewers, a lot of views, and that is what they operate by. In the cinema, it's different. It's more of ticket sales, which is not too different if you're looking at the business models. Yeah, but for the business model of the streaming services, it's based on subscriptions, which could be monthly or annually. For the cinemas, it's based on ticket sales. So there is the need for Africa to take a look at what is happening in Asia. Perhaps we may not be able to pay for that subscription fees as the Asian Pacific region may be paying for. But it then brings to us the lesson for the need to rather have an a regional, a continental market rather than the a market by countries, because if it's a continental market, it helps makes the the other businesses who are coming in from other regions of the world to show up their profits to offset any cost that may come from just a country. So the it's so crucial for us to look at having a continental market, because if Nigeria alone wasn't strong enough to keep Netflix, the mass, perhaps an extensive presence of Netflix within Nigeria, that it means that one country can't do it alone. Even in this article, as I read, it was a region. I mean, it is about a region, Asian Pacific, not just a country. Even though they highlighted the viewing potential of India, which is India alone is quite a big market. But even with that, it's still within a continent where Netflix will be Netflix pays attention to the entire region, even though they still take data from individual markets. And this indeed is something that we should be looking at as African filmmakers and African industries. Individual countries can't help bring in the needed investments required to bolster our industry. It is only when we have a merged market, that is only when we can, even we ourselves as individuals, can find investors within to invest and help put up the necessary infrastructure to help build the industry. The musicians have their industry being held by several events and several structures and policies. Same can be done for the film market, provided we unite our markets. In Africa, in most countries, there is free traveling, free flow. You can travel to so many other African countries without a visa, which is good. Perhaps the first step in the direction towards having a united market. I know there are other factors that may be hindering the merging of our markets with regards to the film industry. Perhaps different inflation rates and different economic value with regards to the currencies. But we need to find a common ground to bring about these markets, because that is the only way we can see a very sizable investment in this area and see a sizable returns as well in these investments. My hope is not for just foreign players to come to our market and invest, but rather internally there could be the rise of businessmen within this space to invest and help bring about a growth in the film industry. Just as I touched on a couple of episodes ago, the expected returns of the film industry worldwide, particularly with regards to the cinema going audience, is around $33 billion, if I'm not mistaken. Can you imagine if Africa is well structured and well put in place, like the way we are seeing in Asia, and the upsurge of the viewership in the Netflix streaming on the Netflix streaming platform, if that can be seen on not just streaming platforms, but especially within the cinemas? Can you imagine how much the number 33 billion will shoot up to? It will be so amazing. It will be so amazing. So it's unfortunate that we don't seem to have the same here in Africa, but with these discussions ongoing on in some of these international film festivals, I believe I'm very optimistic that soon something will be put in place to help with the markets of Africa. So I'm glad for what is happening in the Asia Pacific for Netflix in particular, because a win in other place parts of the world is a win for the entire world, because then it means that businesses in these film in the industry in the film industry will keep on going, and hopefully soon it will positively affect every other part of the world. So yes, I'm excited about the growth and optimistic about the growth of the film industry in Africa as a whole. So yeah, this sums up my stories for today's episode. That is episode 22. And I'm so excited that you joined me for this episode. Thank you so much, my audience, for joining me on this journey of the film mandate. I am Papa Otu, and I will see you tomorrow.